the technical stuff. I mean, 8 a.m. You know, we're all here on a Saturday morning, and there's really nice weather out there. But the thing is, though, like he mentioned about user groups, I got into this role by being part of a user group. I'm from up north, from Vermont, the North user group. Up north, the guy I knew who started that was Rob Rodriguez. Does a lot of rendering stuff. I don't know, those of you that have done user groups might know who that is. But I ran that group for about 2 years, and that's how I end up here through all that type of stuff. So I know how cool this is, and I know how much hard work these guys are putting in. So I always put a shout out for user groups, and I'm a big believer in them. And because of that big belief, because of user groups, you don't want to watch videos. You want to see the stuff live. You want to see the pics and clicks and all out there, because you use the software, you use the stuff. You want to see it running and working. So I guarantee you, my presentation for xShape and all that is live on Wi-Fi, on my phone. Yes, what possibly could go wrong? So just to let you know, it will be live, and it's going to go through doing the technology. But once again, thanks again for putting on this show and doing so much work on a Saturday. So please, and one more thing I'll mention. I also got a 3D scanner with me today, so if any of you want to come by, I might 3D scan you. If you want an STL file of yourself, that's possible. Just saying, you know, I'm not saying people would 3D print themselves or anything, you know, I'd be so. But just saying, just to mention that. But other than that, I'll get started into my present on xShape. So, and by the way, I'll probably pause intermediately just to maybe stop and ask questions at certain points. So don't jump on it right away. I'll have a specific point, and I'll just pause like, hey, this last section, any questions? So just to let you know, I'll break it up with some questions in between. So it's not all at the end, all right? So now technology is already failing me, but hey, that's the way life is. So obviously, introduction. So Ryan already started the introduction. My name is Chris Duchesne. I'm from I live in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. You know, down by the beach. You know, the beautiful area down there, Low Country. By the way, shout out to the Tri-County user group down in Low Country there. Big, I always do a lot of stuff with them, so definitely there. So when I'm not doing stuff like this, work and all that with SolidWorks, I do it a lot, by the way, you can find me at the beach. So for hobbies, what I do, so at the beach, and I also do bodyboarding. You know those boards? You know, I can't swim very well, so you're not going to find me out in the ocean, that wave stuff. I'll be on one of those boards just kind of floating along. Just kind of hold on for it. It's about technical enough I can handle. Plus, I have a little extra ballast that helps me float. Now, the thing about these boards, though, they're more for kids. You know, they have all these different sizes and stuff of these boards, and they're not really large. And as you can tell, I'm a person of fairly large stature, right? Fairly large person. And I mean, the most they can even handle as far as weight is, well, I'm probably towards the higher end of that scale, just a little bit, plus a little more like a times something probably, but we won't go there. But the point is, if you look at that board there, that's really not going to, that's not going to support me, especially if I'm there cruising the waves and everything. So, what about an idea? What about an idea to do something with that? What about designing a new board? Obviously I'll start with an existing wave board, at the highest spec there is, but how do I go through and redesign it to more fit someone of my stature, a new product? That's how all things are found out and come about, is you go and build and design for the next component. And so that's what I'm going to do here, is go through the whole process, designing a wave board that best fit me through using xShape and all that process. But obviously, I'm starting off with reference geometry, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel, even though it is fun. I've got to admit that. So I'm going to start off with using this as a reference and kind of work my way through that process with xShape. So the first step of the process, obviously, is I got to bring that reference geometry in for the wave board. So what I'm going to plan on doing is going through and importing those images. Now, how many people have imported images into SolidWorks? So we're familiar with doing this. You know, you import an image, you put it on a plane and kind of sketch around it. You know, once again, get you that head start. xShape has the exact same capabilities. Obviously, it's going to be different, but it says very, very similar functionality as it comes to that. So, and that's what we're going to go through here is that initial start, how you kind of lay it out. So obviously, we have import image here available to do that. And then you just go through and use import image, and then you get the menu, so you select the image, and also has the same features to place it on a plane and kind of go through and size it. And once again, it's very, very similar to what we're already familiar with the desktop SolidWorks. And I saw a lot of hands go up. I'm sure some of you will see, oh, that's very similar to this. Once again, like they always say, it's the same, but different. How many engineering projects have you heard that they said that before, right? So, and that's kind of what you'll see here. So let's go over to the live session of the browser. So here we go. All right, so here's xShape. Once again, I'm running it within a Chrome browser. I'm already logged in and already have the tab up in the platform. I'm not going to go into the whole details of this. You know, once again, I'm sure you've seen videos of it, of the YouTube leaders. I'm sure some of you may even have access to this. But basically, I'm going to go through. I'm going to start a new component. Basically, when you go through, you want to name your component. So I'll go ahead and name it new board. So it goes ahead and launches into that new component. So as I said before, I'm going to go ahead and once again bring in my images to start to lay it out. So once again, go over to my tools, images, and then once again, same workflow. Once you're in the menu, you go to your desk. You know, once again, this might be on the. Obviously, I could pull the information in, but I'm going to go locally on my machine. I download it off the web. So I'm going to go through and just pull in my first image for the top view of the board I'm going to start working with. And then after that, you select the plane you're going to put it on. So I'll pick the top plane here. Now, obviously, just like in SolidWorks Desktop, you want to, I mean, it just comes in as, it's just an image of whatever size. You know, but obviously, I want to make this board similar to the spec that you saw me the list there we had, about the general length of it at least. Obviously, it's going to get a lot bigger, so this ain't going to, so I don't have to stay there very long, but I still want to make sure I match that size. It's just an image right now. Well, I can actually go through and do that. It was about 48 inches long, 42 inches about, I think, on there. You know, the answer to life, 42. 42 inches long. So I'm going to go ahead now, come down here, and I have an option to set with points. So you see two blue dots, and that's basically similar to that interesting line, that blue line that appears when you import an image into SolidWorks. We have two dots instead, so you don't have to be perfectly straight. You can actually kind of put the dots at either end of it. So it's a little more flexible than with the line. So I'm going to go here, first drag this dot, you know, kind of to this end of it, and then I'll do the same over here, and type in 42 inches, bang, there we go. So it scales it up accordingly, add a little transparency to it. All set. So there's my top image. Now I'm going to go ahead. Now once again, that's one view, but obviously I need to go ahead and put in my side view next. So once again, go through. Once again, just kind of going through, doing a rinse and repeat. Just going to select my image, hit OK. Select the plane. Obviously, it's still on the command for the points. Just what's the nice thing is here, because you can actually by the way, unlike the other line in SolidWorks, remember when you drag the line, you let go, no, wait, and it's gone. Here you can actually drag a few times and stuff. It doesn't take it in right away. And then, of course, 42 inches, bang. Now, By the way, the F key works here. Similar commands back and forth. So what you know in SolidWorks will work here. Okay, now obviously if you look here closer at it, you'll say, wait a minute, that's not very exact. Well, like bringing images in, very often you got to do a little tweaking, you know, because it's just coming in, placed in the plane. So I'm going to go through and do that now. The nice thing is here, I just got to go through and double click at any point, and it'll automatically start the edit. And that's with most features in xShape. You could just double click on it or click on the image, the actual whichever feature it is, and it'll jump right into editing automatically. You don't have to go through right click and have those multiple steps. It just starts editing immediately. So go through here, and I have the triad, or they call the robot here. Now, one of the things I'm going to look at, because it is an imported image, you can see it came in upside down. Once again, an image doesn't necessarily have orientation, but it's easy to flip. So I go over here to my different ways to flip. There's it is, blue side up, because it matches the blue top. And then I'll go ahead and use the triad, also known as the robot. It's again the same but different. And I'll drag it over here. I'm basically going to drag it till I get to the end there. And maybe drag it down a little bit to make sure I get that kind of that transition line there for it. Of course, I can zoom in, make sure I'm there. And once again, it's just guesstimation, just like with importing any image. And I'm about there right in the end of that. So go ahead and accept that, and there I have my import image to start with for it. So obviously, like anything else, got to go ahead and hit the save button. You know, save button, you know, they 3D print those things. I've seen them. Some people think that's a joke. These gray hairs should say that. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so now let's go back to, so now I've come to the, all right, so I've inserted my pictures, so I got my layout already dialed in for that, and now I'm ready to move on to the next step of the process, obviously, is now let's go start getting into creating a part in xShape, because this is really what it's all about. Now, creating a part in xShape is very, very different. What makes it so different is you start dealing with, they call it subdivisional or sub-D modeling, where basically you start working with almost clay. So it's not features. You don't sketch, feature, sketch, feature, sketch, features. Not that way we're used to in desktop SolidWorks. Here, you actually work with more of a, with actual objects. And you kind of mold it into the shape you want. And very often you go through and they give you several objects to start with. Yes, no features, no sketches. There's like a ball of clay or something or something to work with. So the goal is you want to select maybe some geometry to start with. And by the way, I've seen people do the same object with completely like a ball or a box or whatever. They use the same and they still get to the same object. So it doesn't mean, oh, no, I got the wrong object. I got to start over again. Not usually. It depends on how you mold it. So don't think that, oh, if you make the wrong object, I'm kind of hung out there. No, you're good. But it gives you that flexibility. So as part of that, I'm going to start off with a box in this case. Now, not only when you start off with a box, you get the box, you know, the lump of clay to work with, but you also define the divisions. How many people are familiar with splines in SolidWorks? Some may know, some may not know. Some might know it can be a love-hate relationship sometimes. Depends on how much experience you've had with it. But splines in SolidWorks, you have points that define it and how it bends and stuff. Well, if you have familiarity with splines, that logic actually applies here. Where every time you have a spline point, you have a bend. You can do a sharp bend. Well, here, every time I have a division in the box, I can do a bend or twist by every division or every edge that you see here. Well, just like with any spline, you want to start off with less is more. So you can always add more divisions as you go, but always start with as low as possible. So in this case, I'm going to go through and do that to make sure I set these numbers. By the way, these numbers define basically the 3 different sides of the box, and these numbers specify how many divisions do you start with. So let's go ahead and See me play with some clay. Woohoo! All right, so once again, I'm coming in here, going down to my bottom menu to my divisions, and you can't see it on the screen. That's awesome. But you can see it pop up here in a minute, and I'll pick up my box. So when you pick up my box, basically you can place it anywhere in your design, or like any part, like inserting to an assembly, or in general, you can also hover over the planes, or right on the origin, we'll place it there to start with. So go ahead and do that. Up comes my divisions that I mentioned. And once again, I'm going to kind of drop these down to a few lower numbers to work with. Now, when you're doing this, obviously, you see I have actual arrows to start with. So I don't have to like place it and leave it. I can just right now say, you know what, let's go. Let's get this thing, let's kind of make this already into that shape. Now you're like, whoa, getting carried away. But no, that's the problem. It changes so fast, you can quickly already get laid out to what you want and go for it. So here's my piece of clay. Obviously it's a little too big. And basically now you start molding it and working with it in the different orientations. So first, I'm going to go through, and something we use a lot in SolidWorks, and hopefully most of you guys do this. I know here we use a command a lot called Symmetry. We use that to help select and do your different points. So I'll go ahead and select this, select my Symmetry, which goes and place it, and then you go through and basically make selections of it. You can select individual lines, or make sure to hit the green check, by the way. You guys want to see that again, right? So even though I didn't go ahead and place those in, still the same process. Once again, you can pre-select it, or in this case, I'll go right to, and then once again, that green line represents symmetry along the plane. Now you could define other planes. So there's my robot, and of course, I want to get that skinnier because obviously it's too far. Obviously, I made it too big, but it's that quick to adjust. Length as well. So every time you make a selection, you can select individual lines, or you put a box in and selects all the vertices of it, and then once again that robot comes up, allows you to drag it and move it. So basically you're pushing and pulling with the different things. Now before, if you drag one side, for example, move just that piece. Well, I have a dot here. Well, that dot will scale it both directions. So if I grab the dot now, you'll see both ends. Come on. Here's an example of, so where's my symmetry? This way, not this way. So this is an example of where it is scaling it, but, so let me just switch. There we go. Now, if you notice, it kind of went to that horizontal view, vertical view. So when you're dealing with these points, let's say I'm over here in this right corner and I just grab this edge and I just want to drag it. Now you'll see when I pick that point, that robot went down on an edge like that, sideways. So when you're working with clay, especially in this environment, just like when you're doing 3D sketching, how many people have done 3D sketching? Sometimes you've got to get in that right orientation to kind of keep the X, Y, and Z. Well, the same thing here with X design is when you're going to pull like in linear in a front, right, top view, it's best to orient yourself, and it'll automatically it locks those axes accordingly, so when you drag it, it doesn't go all backwards on you. For example, if I grab this right now and just start dragging it, it just does the whole funky kind of bends it over, because I'm in a kind of a 3D tilted view. So one of the things you always want to be aware of as you're working with this, definitely orient yourself in different views. So you got to think a little bit. Say in this case, if I go to the top view now, I want to get the kind of the width of the profile. I can go ahead and jump to once again, take advantage of my symmetry. And let's go ahead and just now, obviously, you're going to say, where the heck did the object go? I've covered it up completely. Well, guess what? So just like there's transparency with graphics, but I can also do transparency of my actual clay. So I can actually look through it right now actively to see, hey, am I close to it? Am I far from it? As you can see here, I'm a little bit beyond it, but that's no problem. Go here, bring in a little bit, maybe go ahead. Bring this side a little bit, no problem at all. Now, one of the things now obviously you can see up here, hey, maybe I can grab it and drag it. For example, I'll select these points, just like, yeah, I've seen a lot of pushing and pulling, but what if there's a faster way, a way to like just kind of sketch something on there to get a shape quickly? Well, I can actually go through, select the points I'm interested in, and I actually get like we have a context toolbar. It also has context toolbars, Well, there's a capability here where I can actually go through and sketch my entities and just draw a line to kind of a general shape I want. For example, I want kind of match this a little bit, and it'll go through and calculate that. So there might be shapes you're just designing. You don't have to keep pushing and pulling points. You can just sketch a shape, and it'll kind of get the orientation for you on the fly for that. Now, if you probably notice, I'm getting kind of and you kind of notice, getting a weird bending going on here. Just like with splines, you might have to add divisions. So if you want to have a curve, you need to have like a division to kind of add that kind of a bending point. So right here, I get this is kind of coming in. Well, I can add another segment of lines for insert a loop, where I can go ahead and I can just select on this, and it'll give me a split, where it's now going to split that in half. So that's why when you start off with the block there, you don't have to go through and add all those lines right away. You can add them as you go, where now, if I grab this geometry here and bring it in, and by the way, you see how the orientation changes based on my selection? Well, you can always right-click on it and then go to X, Y, Z. So because my orientation has been straight on all those parts, it's been nice straight, but I can always change to be X, Y, Z. So now, when I make the selection, it'll stay that way. Now I can drag it in. So once again, I added that segment, which now allows me to bend that in without having it. So it's kind of once again, if you've done splines, you're kind of used to this whole adding a point. Well, that's basically similar here in how you divide it up. So I guess, maybe a quick adjustment back here. Good enough, right? So, all right. And then, of course, you can turn the transparency on and off. And when I'm done editing it, just hit OK. Pulls me out. There I go. There's my basic beginning start to my board. And, of course, like anything else, remember to save. All right, so before I jump into the next piece, where I'm going to go from xShape into SolidWorks, because okay, that's great, you make me a nice clay thing up over the internet, but what about taking that into SolidWorks? So before I jump into that, any general questions on xShape? Give a pause point here. Yes. Sorry, I can't. Sorry. So I guess the question is, when I dragged it, how did it extend past, why did it extend past the board? So the board is an image of just an outline, like a trace of an outline. And when I grabbed the points to drag it, I went beyond it because that's actual physically a different model component. That's where they're separate. All right? Any other quick ones? One more I'll take. Good? All right. All right, moving into, because once again the question is, that's great, you make that awesome shape. Try to do that in surfacing. That would have been a little longer than that, I'm sure. Well, I don't know, somebody has some surfacing experts here who could get around that. Well, bring it into SolidWorks Desktop. I mean, this is what you want. Okay, that's great, but I want to work with it to get the product made, drawings, and get it done. So I'm going to go with SolidWorks Desktop, and then we're going to use the SolidWorks add-in for a 3D Experience platform to connect to the cloud or to the platform to bring the file down that I just worked with. Now, basically what you're doing is when you do that, you basically go through, and this is the add-in running. And by the way, just like when someone says, oh, how can I bring a part into an assembly? Many different ways, like in SolidWorks. There's more than one way to do it. The same thing here. There's more than one way to do it. Doesn't mean they're wrong, but I'll just show one way of doing it, but there's at least several. So don't think that, oh, that's the only way or it's cumbersome. There's several different ways to bring it in to SolidWorks right through the add-in for the platform. So basically what you do is when you get the file, and this is the key to it, this is like the one thing that will be similar, you can drag and drop it into SolidWorks, either from the task pane here, or just grab it off the website and just drag it in. Whatever workflow you prefer. But basically, usually you just drag and drop it into SolidWorks, and it'll go through and then convert the file. Download it and convert it on the fly with that. And when it converts it, it uses 3D Interconnect. Does anybody know what that is? Does anybody understand? So I'll just mention real quick what 3D Interconnect is. So 3D Interconnect is the capability of being able to import 3D files from many different CAD systems. CATIA, Pro-E, Inventor, NX, I'm sure just once again, and several other systems that I'm sure I'm missing. Step files, IGES, and so on. But that's what's being used when you drag and drop that in. You're coming from the platform, which is a different CAD system, into SolidWorks. And that's what's going to be happening in the background. I just wanted to explain the magic of what it's doing. So it's not magic, that's what's actually happening when you do the drag and drop. So obviously, let's go ahead, have a look at that. So here I am in SolidWorks. Now once again, there's more than one way to do this. So for one case, I'll go ahead and search the platform for a new board. And then I'll go through and find different options of it. Of course, the top one I just worked on was the new board you just saw me making from scratch. And like I said, the process, more than one way, but this one I'll just drag and drop. So it goes through, starts it, downloads the file, then it's starting to convert it. And this is 3D Interconnect. And when it converts it, you got to once again give it a file. I don't have it on auto. So I'm going through giving a file to kind of put it in. Once again, when you convert a file, that's what it's doing, and then go ahead and places it into a part file. And that's, by the way, this is 3D Interconnect. If you had an Inventor file that we just talked about, the process of it converting would be very similar of how it creates this file. Once again, this isn't special to the platform. This is just functionality in desktop and how it works. Now, that's the file for the container, but if I want to modify this file, I need to put it in a container where I can add SolidWorks features. So I'm going to go ahead here, go to New, create a new part file, and I'll go ahead and save this and call it new board. And then I'm just going to insert the part that just got converted right into this part file. Now, once again, everyone's like, didn't you just do that? I could have sworn I saw a part file pop up. Yes, you are right. I did see a part file pop up. But once again, that's just referencing, that is a reference. You know, external references we're familiar with, right? From one file to another, or in assemblies. Well, that first file is an external reference to the original XML file. But in order for me to do actual modifications to this geometry in SolidWorks CAD, I need to add a container or a file of a SolidWorks CAD file where I can add SolidWorks features. And that's kind of why it's like an extra step there. Now this is with any, by the way, this would work with any file you would normally do it with 3D Interconnect, but that's kind of why I'm doing this, so I can add those extra features. For example, now I can go right ahead and just go ahead and start a sketch. Front plane. By the way, if you just saw the tips and tricks, which key was that I just used? S key, exactly. Make sure you're paying attention. Go through, S key again. By the way, I'm a big S key guy. I'm all about the keyboard. So for extra credit, for just one more piece of trivia, when did the S key ever come out? This is a user group. Someone's got to know. What year of release of SolidWorks? Release of SolidWorks, what release of SolidWorks was the S key came out? Release. What year released SolidWorks? Not. I've not heard an answer at all. Nope. The closest one was 10, but still that's too new. 2008, the S key came out. Did anybody say 2008? I did not hear it. I heard 10 was the closest. Yep. It is a fully watertight model. And what's going on here is, and this is something you're about to see, is that this basically, once again, was a converted geometry, and that's about what I'm about to explain here. So I'm about to save, obviously I'm just saving the file up to the platform. So what's happening here is that it did that conversion. And that model, by the way, is a fully watertight, as you saw, it was Play-Doh. I started to play with that big blob of box. Well, it never extrude cut, never did anything to it. The reason I bring it in here, now I pop a hole in it, but remember, I'm popping a hole in Desktop SolidWorks. So it is a separate CAD file, but because I put it in that container, like I mentioned earlier, I can go ahead and add my geometry from, it's just a normal body, it's a single body file to SolidWorks. Does that help?
What's the other file then? I'm still confused. I don't import from other CAD platforms. It's an image. So you can't edit it at all? Was it an STL or?
No, it's an 3D XML. Anything on the web-based are 3D XML files. But if you brought in any other, like if you put in a step file, it would be very similar in how it treats it. That's what I'm saying. The image that got created, you probably have been using it whenever you've done a step file recently?
No, I turned that crap off.
Well, that would explain why you haven't seen it. But if you turn it on, that does the conversion. That's what creates this type of file. Yeah. You can always right-click and disassociate, but I don't want to disassociate. I want to do the change and bring it down. So in this case, I want to keep the association, but yes, you can disassociate in the future if you'd like. Yes. All right. So that kind of gets me to there and to modify. But like you just said, I got my little reference here. It's associative. And I want this association because, let's be honest, things change. So, all right. So basically the whole point of all this is, and kind of getting back to what you're talking about, because this is where 3D Interconnect, and once again, that's what it's using, just so everybody knows that is a function. Within Desktop currently, is I am working with 3D Experience with this 3D XML file format. It is a different CAD, that's the platform, and then I put it within a SolidWorks file. And that's what allows me to put a hole in it. And that's the structure of what I just created. Not fancy, not magic, not, woo. That's what I'm using to create files. And if you did this with any import of a step file or something, keep the reference, like you said. If you keep the reference, this is the structure you're setting up. All right, now comes the favorite thing of all, making a change. It's great to put a file in, but what if it changes on the platform or I want to redesign? Remember, I was going to sketch that out quickly, because let's be honest, that board's a little small for me. I'm just going out there, I want a little more briefer. Maybe make it a little funkier. So now I'm going to go through and make a change and update it from the platform. And I'm sure I've already blown by my time a while ago, right? But and this, by the way, this is the last step, so if time's still good. So now I'm going to switch back to the platform real quick here. And obviously, there's my part that's still running. Then I just imported, remember the name there, new board, so it's the same file. So like I said before, I want to go through and make some changes and just double click at the feature. Now this time, I'm going to turn off my transparency. And what I want to adjust is just the sides here. So first, actually, I'm going to make it a little thicker, right? Would that be a good idea? Yeah. So just be able to take the extra, my extra large profile that I have. So I'm just going to select that. I'm going to go ahead and select my center symmetry. And that's that green, once again, that green line represents the symmetry because do the same for both sides. Make it a little thicker and you just go ahead. Select the points. A little thicker. Just a little stronger. To do that, I'll come to the back here. Now, obviously, this is kind of a boring board. You got kind of this, flatness here. Wouldn't it be cool if we had like kind of a wing, a little like aerodynamic wings or something? Well, I can go ahead and add that. So once again, if I want to bend these sides up, I need to add more, just like with a spline line, need to add more intersections. So I'll go ahead and just select, throw a new one in. And now that increases the flexibility. And once again, you want to do on one side, you want to do both. I forgot symmetry. See, look at that. I'm trying to tell you guys, oh yeah, you do symmetry. Now, can you do it individually? Yes, but I'm trying to keep it symmetric around the part. Is that enough, you think, or a little bit more? Nah, well, I'm more aggressive, so I'm going to throw another. There we go. There we go, a little bit better. And more of a, by the way, you can also use the axes to bend stuff too, instead of it being just dragging. Give a little bit of angle there, a little flip in the front. How's that look? Better? Different? Once again, some of my large stature. So, exit my editing. Now, the key here is I'm going to save. So basically, that saving is updating the file that's stored up here. Because once again, I'm still editing here on top on xShape, and once again, I want to bring this change down into the actual software. Now I come back and now I come back to here. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is, and this is pretty straightforward. I'm sure all of you have done this. Anybody familiar with PDM or file exchange and stuff? All you're doing is, because remember, I have external reference due to 3D Interconnect, I can go ahead and I can reload the file. So once I save it, that gets remembered and saved on the platform, and once again, I have a connection directly to that file with that reference, and all I have to do is reload it, and then it'll update the geometry because I kept my reference for that specific file. And that's the flexibility here, is I'm just reloading that file from once the change is made after it's saved. So obviously here's my files. There's the one with the right click. Like I said, all I'm going to do is reload. Goes through, does the update, updates the geometry, once again, because I have that reference, and then it comes back and updates the geometry into the part file. Now you get my funky board design. And as you can see, the hole's still in it, so I go back, still modify the part, and with that external reference, it all kind of keeps updated from the platform. And that's how you're able to work with like xShape or any of those other apps that are up there. That's how you link it back into your desktop and can update your geometry. And then, of course, like with anything else, always remember to save. So now I was able to update my geometry of my funky board. And as you can see, I'm tied back to the platform. So as long as I keep that reference, external reference there, I can just keep updating and iterating as I go through the design process. So obviously, that's pretty much it. I think time-wise, I'm doing okay. Probably a little on the longer side, but any questions? Yes, sir.
Does that allow you to add, I see I had a line there, as soon as the reporting line in the middle, does that allow you to add like flat surface with a certain angle within one of the radius?
Yeah, you can add folds, they called it, and flatten it, yeah. You can flatten edges and folds. Yeah. You can actually, well, you mean one end whole end totally flat. And by the way, that surface, flat surface, will be treated as a true flat in SolidWorks, by the way, as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So before that, I hadn't heard of xShape. Is xShape meant to be like a software to just do quick 3D modeling, and then you can import it something like SolidWorks to be like a final design?
Yeah, so those of you that are familiar with surfacing, if you've done surfacing in SolidWorks, that would have taken you a day, a good while. And that's the thing about it. And also, that can also maintains level C2 continuity, continuous radius and so the geometry is very, very organic and shapeful. It's not to replace designing in SolidWorks. Like prismatic parts in SolidWorks, boom, you can do those all day. No problem. I mean, it's meant that. This is for the stuff that's harder, where this can crank out the design, I can bring it into SolidWorks, and then, of course, I add my holes and stuff and document with a drawing. But it fills in this little gap in SolidWorks' toolbox that was kind of more of a longer, more cumbersome process. You can actually tap into it with xShape. That's why it's an advantage to take it. And that's kind of where that's fitting here. And anybody who does surfacing can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes? What? Industrial designer. Thank you, yes.
Use that to put two dimensions, or like you're just dragging and dropping and doing, say you're making like a drill housing or something like that, but shape the hand.
Yeah, you can actually add limits. There's actually a 3D box you can add and actual limits to it. So you can add a segment with a length. Yes, you can add dimensions to it. So there is some control from the platform side too as well. Yeah, like you have two flat faces and you can dimension it. Yep. Yes, sir.
It seems like this is for more, organic shapes.
Yeah.
Does this work very well with the mold tools? It seems like, you
Yep.
bring it in, you can just generate mold.
There actually is some capabilities similar to mold tools. You actually have there is some actually there's functionality in it. I didn't show it obviously, being this such a short event, but there actually is ability to actually do draft analysis within actual xShape. It has some mold tool functionality already in xShape. But yeah, then you can bring it in, obviously, further refine it within SolidWorks Desktop. Anyone else? Let me know when I'm sorry, I'm not repeating the question, I don't think. What? All right. So the question was, those are repeated, is that, can I use mold tools? And the answer is yes, it can. So hopefully that. All right. I guess people are thirsty. Just getting a feeling for that. All right. All right. Thank you very much.